Good evening, everyone. This is the Elbows Out MotoGP podcast, the Sachsenring German Grand Prix review. I'm joined as always by Keelin. How are you, mate? All right?
Mate, I am great. It is good to be back. I've been to many far foreign and mysterious lands in West Sussex, that is to say Goodwood. But I'm back in HQ, I'm back in the podcast, and I'm back recording. Like you said, we've got a lot of stuff to catch up on from the Saxon Ring, and looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah. We will, of course, get into Keelin's experience, primarily the two wheels at Goodwood, and obviously the Grand Prix stars that were there, and some of the road racing stars that were at the Goodwood Festival Speed. If you haven't been, it's great, but we'll go into that in a bit. But yeah, so this weekend, Sachsenring Grand Prix, we all kind of knew where it was going to go. When you've got a returning to form or already returned to form, Marc Marquez, going to Germany when the Aprilias have been, well, the factory Aprilias have been all over the place recently. You kind of knew which way it was going. I think it would have probably worked out this way, even if Bez and Jorge had never lost form all year. I think it best they would have been second and third. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Yeah, no, I totally would. I mean, it's the easiest prediction pretty much of the entire season. Mark's going to win at Saxon Ring, and he's going to look pretty good doing it. And
Yeah,
even though I didn't actually have the chance, unfortunately, as much as I always love doing it, even though I didn't have the chance to watch the races live, I just knew he was going to win because it's Mark. He owns the Saxon Ring. He is just
yeah,
a beast in Germany, and he
yeah,
showed that again. There's really not much more I can add to it, but he's brilliant. He's looking brilliant. Once again, he was great around his favorite track, and
yeah.
yeah, he looks very, very intimidating at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's such a cliche to say it, isn't it? But it is true. Like it would have been himself. He'd have crashed out, and that's the only reason. That's the only way he'd have lost the race.
Yeah,
There was no way he was going to finish second or third. It wouldn't be unlike Mark to do that. Just unlikely, unlikely for him to do it there. He's done it in other races where he's strong. He's done it at Austin a couple of times when he should have won. 2019 comes to mind, definitely. I think 2023 as well. But yeah, I, I think this year, Keelan, I've gone off Saxonry even more than I ever had before. That's not just because, media outlets are saying the same thing. You sort of, and you think, oh, yeah, I believe what you say. It's not like that. It's just that first sector is horrible. It's too slow for
mm,
MotoGP bikes. That turn one is off camber. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. It's a really weird dip, and then turn right even further. It invites silly crashes. It's very slow, and so is the next couple of corners. I was just saying earlier on X that I wish they had like 10 or 15 million euros and they could completely reprofile the first corner, couple of corners at Sachsenring, so that the only slow bit would be the tiny bit going around the little mountain at Sachsenring. But there is a road, like a service road right behind it, so there's not much you could do. But you could definitely get rid of that stupid dip and a really off-camber weird profile, I think, to a degree. It just ruins the profile of the track. Other than that, it's not bad. I like the last corner. I like the last section. I love the waterfall and those fast lefts just before that section. That's all cool. A bit like Donington in a way. You have one of the most amazing first sectors ever in the world, and then it's ruined by a stop-start after. Whereas it's actually rinks the other way around. It stop-starts to begin with, and they're really fast at the end of the lap. It's just a shame that MotoGP bikes are so fast these days, and they will be faster again next year, guys, in time. It's just that the top speed will be lower. It won't be much different, really. But I think it's here to stay, and it does get a good crowd, doesn't it, Keelan? The Saxonry does get, well, I mean, I don't think I saw it. I think we're talking almost 100,000, aren't we, on race day still? So it's not exactly, it's the attendance. It's not the attendance, is it, Keelan?
Oh, oh God, no. I mean, credit to the German MotoGP fans. Much like in football and other sports, they show up and they show out every time MotoGP rolls into town. They're brilliant at supporting their local race. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you do make a great point about the Saxon Ring as a whole. That first sector of the track is just ugly, quite frankly, because there's no
Mm.
other way I can think of to describe it. It's slow, it's boring, it doesn't really know what it's trying to be or what it's trying to do, and it's really poor because, like you rightly said, the rest of the track is a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, the waterfall section is amazing. That rapid fire downhill shot
Fantastic.
into that
Yeah,
left-hander is brilliant. We get some really good action from that. It's just that entire first sector just needs bulldozed and reworked. And
yeah,
if they did that, you would actually have one of the best tracks, arguably, on the calendar because the rest of it is so much fun to watch. It's just that first sector is just really, really poor, which does let down what is otherwise a really good venue for racing.
yeah. But I thought if there's not much you could do about its profile, you could make the first corner earlier. It'd be closer to the start line. Does that make sense? Bring turn one
Yeah.
forward, backward, I should say. Yeah, forward, and then you could have it could just be a bit quicker. I, I don't like it. It just take. It feels like turn one takes an eternity at Sachsenring. Uh, Not quite as long as turn one at Shanghai. That was the most boring turn one ever for MotoGP. Some people love it. In an F1 car, it might be quite cool, but yeah, those corners that go on forever at low speed, I don't. It's not for me. Yeah. Moving on to Bez. Before we get on to some of the bits, wrecked his weekend. Didn't even do half the second half of the weekend. That was a horrible, horrible high side. And he didn't have tumble quite a bit. Obviously, we know now that he's aiming to get back at Silverstone. You already said Keelin, didn't you? Was it actually before Assen or just after the Assen crash? I think you said actually. I think his championship hopes are already over. And then you text me when he crashed at Assen. I think saying there you go, it definitely is now. And now he's got another DNF or DNS, but he's still not a million points away. But I think this surely, I'm guessing in your mind, this is locked in your first opinion, is it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I kind of want to be very clear about this because certain people are going to think, why? Because I've never given them this impression. Some people are going to think that I'm somehow celebrating this or I'm happy about it. Listen, let me be very, very clear. Not only as a professional, but as a fan, I love Marco Bezzecchi. I've always been a Marco Bezzecchi supporter. And frankly, I'd love to see him win the championship because I think it would be great for the championship and for the sport. But I just think the warning signs were there. I think the pressure was there. And then I know we saw quite a few crashes at that turn across the weekend,
Yeah,
but that
yeah,
high side was just absolutely wicked. I mean, it threw him off at something like, what, 100, 120 mile an hour?
yeah,
I think something like that. And then he just had the worst landing imaginable. And then snap, left collarbone gone, broken.
yeah.
And of all the things Marco Bezzecchi needed, this is this is below the bottom of the list. You know, a broken collarbone for obvious reasons is one of the worst injuries a MotoGP rider can have because you need that side of your body in order to be physical on the bike and to turn into lean and all this different kind of thing. Now, the one sort of recourse and perhaps the one thing that might save Marco Bezzecchi is the fact that we're now into a 3 week summer break
Yeah.
and he might recover a little bit in time for Silverstone. And if not, then definitely the races after that. But this is just a disaster for Marco Bezzecchi, and I'm really, really sorry that it's happened to him because I don't want to see anybody get injured, but I especially don't want to see somebody like him who's trying to fight for a title. I certainly don't want to see that happen to somebody and for them to have the chance taken away because of it. But yeah, it's just a really unfortunate turn of events.
It is, but 3 weeks, as you said, is the recovery time. He's got ahead of him before the British Grand Prix. But he won the British Grand Prix last year? Yes, okay, he kind of inherited it from a really sad man.
Oh, that was
Well,
even worse.
Fabio's bike. Oh, it was their ride high device, wasn't it? Seasoned. Fabio was in tears. I think, bless him, and I think the whole world wanted Fabio Quartararo to win that race. Nonetheless, Aprilia have
I
always been
did.
good. Yeah, I mean, we all did. Nonetheless, Aprilia have always been strong at Silverstone anyway. Of course, they won in 2023 when it just started. Well, he was at the front and it just started to rain a bit. Aleix won that race. Yeah, in 2024. Listen, Aprilia will be strong at Silverstone, but it doesn't mean that he's going to be 100% fit. And Iagura will be up there again. Mark, in my
Yep.
opinion, will still be on the podium, may even win, but he won't have the best bike for Silverstone. I guarantee you that. That doesn't mean he won't be winning the Silverstone, but he won't have the best bike for Silverstone. The current Aprilia is easily the best Premier class bike they've ever made, next to its rivals. And I truly believe that Martin could pick up a win or Bez could pick up a win. They have to try and beat Mark. have to try and reduce these points at circuits like Silverstone, it was Silverstone and it was sort of Argentina and a couple of other tracks that were Aprilia tracks. Now the list is longer, but Silverstone is an Aprilia circuit, so they need to maximise it. And Bez will be doing everything in his power to be fit enough. The thing is, he was very bruised for Sachsenring. Don't forget, Keelin. He wasn't 100% this weekend before he sent himself into that gravel trap. So, yeah, I truly believe it, because otherwise you're just going to be watching Mark creep away, finally get the points lead after Silverstone on a few more races. And then the only person who's challenging him is Ayagura with P2, P2, P2. And I don't want that to happen, especially when we've got 5 riders within 40 points or something ridiculous like that,
Yeah.
which doesn't really happen very often, does it? So fingers crossed Aprilia can be strong at Silverstone, and I truly believe there will be. It's not just wishful thinking, folks. But we need to move on from that, because that's just a waiting game now. Bit of a summer break. But Maverick Vinales, God, oh dear. So he probably knows that he's not going to be riding for Tech 3 KTM next year. Now, what Pit Barra has been saying is that he basically, Mav got mixed up or told himself in his head that the chance he had for 2027 was with factory team. And apparently Pit Barra is now saying that the confusion was that he never knew it was just Tech 3. So that's why you've got that's apparently what's happening. Okay, that's apparently what's happening. And Mav has been misled. He's been saying I've been misled, blah, 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 in other words, of course. I'm not going to remember everything off the top of my head, folks. But yeah, he's basically finishing behind Cal Crutchlow in the last couple of races. And he was nowhere at Sachsenring. He might as well have not turned up, truthfully. I might as well have been on that bike. It was, he's either lost his head or he's purposely going slow. Thing is with Marv, it could be both. It could be either, because we've seen it with the Yamaha. We saw it in the Blue Sens Moto3 days and the FTR chassis, but he was a teenager then. The only time I think he was properly an adult about hard situations was probably when he was early days Suzuki, truthfully. And he went to Yamaha and he was a consistent podium finisher. Guys, he is probably one of the most talented riders that isn't Marquez or Valentino Rossi. He truly is one of the most naturally gifted riders that's just not been able to put it together. And I don't think, I'm sorry, but I don't think he can blame teams and manufacturers and contracts. If you've got an average of 1 win a year, less than an average of 1 win a year, in the 11 seasons he's been in MotoGP, I don't think that's, for the caliber of rider he is, you can't just put it on the teams when you've had factory bikes the whole time, more or less. I think he could have just done more this year. He should have. Well, first thing first, he should never have gone back as early as he did. That was bloody stupid last year. Went back too early, lied to KTM about his injury being gone. It wasn't. And since then, that shining light he had in the Qatar Grand Prix last year, folks, if you remember the 2025 Qatar Grand Prix, leading that most of that race, then he got tire pressure infringement, I believe, and then I think he don't think he even finished in the points in the end. That was the only real shining light he had for KTM. Sadly, there might have been a few others off the top of my head. I can't remember which ones, but it's just such a silly shame. I think he'll always have that bit of bitterness in his head when something's not going his way, or he thinks he's being ironed out in the team. He had that in his head about Fabio. It wasn't like that. He thought he wasn't getting good enough equipment, as good as Fabio Quartararo. Lynn Jarvis said, you're on. It's not that way. And I think Marv just beats him. He didn't fire himself from Aprilia, but I don't know if you remember, Keelin. They signed Jorge Martin, announced him at the 2024, after the Italian 2024 Grand Prix, Mugello. Then Vinales immediately said he was leaving Aprilia. Immediately, sort of left the team. Why would you do that? They were intending to keep him. They would have had Vinales and Martin. I think, did he think we don't know, but a lot of people assumed it was, okay, you've hired another Spaniard. You don't trust me to get the job done then, do you? Okay, you've hired Martin. He thought the wrong way entirely, like the most negative thoughts, and then left and went to Tech 3 KTM. It's just a waste of a talent, really. I'll be gobsmacked if he ends up staying at Tech 3 KTM. They're saying nothing's finalised yet. But after all this, after all these little stories on ways talked about teams, blowing up Yamaha M1, I haven't forgotten about that, folks. He's had so many chances. And don't forget, this is a factory spec bike at Tech 3. It's not just the old Tech 3s where there were last year's parts. He's had everything. He's had everything, and the way he's been speaking about KTM isn't good enough. It's not. He doesn't deserve it anymore. If there was a 32 rider grid or a 28 bike grid, maybe, definitely, definitely maybe. But right now, I think his time's up. I don't think he deserves to be in MotoGP anymore. I might get some comments about that. Fine. Keelan might agree, or do you not agree?
What I will say is this, because frankly, this could be a much, much longer conversation than it's going to be, but I'll try and sum it up as best as I can. When this season finishes, Maverick Vinales is going to be remembered as one of the greatest wastes of talent the MotoGP grid has ever seen. And
Yep.
I do mean any era, because I don't think you were being hyperbolic or over the top when you said that outside of Valentino and Mark, Vinales is one of the most talented riders we've ever seen. In fact, I pretty totally agree with you with that because we've seen what he can do. He was great when he came onto the scene with Suzuki. He was great in flashes with Yamaha. He had one or two really good races with Aprilia. But Maverick Vinales' single biggest problem has always been and will always be that psychologically he is unbelievably brittle. And what I mean by that is he appears tough, but the second it gets put on him, he cracks into a million pieces. He just does not have what it takes to fight. I'm sorry, he
Mm.
doesn't.
Yeah.
He does not have what it takes when the going gets tough. He packs his bags and he runs for the hills. That's just the truth. You know, when it started getting tough at Yamaha, he tried to blow the bike up because he thought he was being treated
Yeah.
differently to Fabio Quartararo. Then he got a lifeline with Aprilia and he threw his dummy out of the pram because he assumed he was getting fired instead of, or being let go instead of Alicia Spargaro. So he left there with a bad taste in their mouth too. Now he's gone to KTM. He's ruined that as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to any Maverick Vinales fans out there because I know there are some here, there, and everywhere. He doesn't deserve it. Frankly, the way Maverick Vinales has behaved has been nothing short of an absolute disgrace. And how he hasn't been slapped over the head by somebody in one of these teams, I truly don't know. Because if somebody tried to blow my bike up or they threw the dummy out of the pram in public, no less, in the public domain, saying things that clearly weren't true, I'd have absolutely slapped him for some of the stuff that he's done. And quite frankly, I think Pitt Byrer and Gunther Steiner have been incredibly lenient with the way they've treated Maverick Vinales. The fact they haven't gone to town on him in front of the world's media is to their credit because I would have absolutely reamed him out by now for some of the stuff that he's said and done. But let's be clear, I think Maverick Vinales is finished in MotoGP. And
Yeah.
to be totally honest, I don't think he's anybody to blame but himself. Yes, he's had a little bit of bad luck here and there, but guess what, Maverick? Every rider deals with bad luck at one point or another. And unlike you, they actually fight through it and they try and make their situation better. Your problem is you run for the hills the second the going gets tough. And
Yeah.
that's why
Yeah.
nobody wants to keep you on the grid. I'm sorry, it sounds brutal, but it is the truth. You know, you can give a young Moto2 rider that chance who's going to try and they're going to work hard. And even though I don't think he deserves to be in MotoGP anymore, someone like Jack Miller never complains, is at least always trying to be better and trying to be more competitive. What do you do? All you do is sit and whine and complain when things aren't going your way. Listen, he might end up in World Superbike or get a seat there or some other paddock, and good luck to him. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think when he leaves MotoGP, I don't think he's going to be missed.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously we missed it with by some people he's close with, but the sport's not going to miss him drastically. So I am sad to say that, folks. I think the last win was his last win, the Austin race in 2024 on the
Do you know,
Aprilia, when he
very
was
possibly.
absolutely miles ahead, and that's when he had the long hair. Do you remember when he sort of really grew his hair? It was Batmav, and he won. He won the Austin race. Mark
He looked like a
crashed, but
fifth Beatle.
yeah, he did a bit. Yeah, he was. He got a bad start, and he just I think he was 14th at one point, and he wasn't going to lose that race. Carved his way through the field. Yes, Mark was on the Gresini Ducati and took the front into that hairpin before the long straight at Austin. But I don't know if Mark was going to win that race anyway. Mark was on the underpowered GP23 compared to the 24s. And Mav was just in another world. And everyone was thinking, is this the Mav, the mature Mav? The 29-year-old Mav, is he now going to be consistent throughout the rest of the year and finally, fast enough like we saw him in some of his Yamaha days? Because Maverick Vinales won his first 3 races with Yamaha. And we never saw form like that again, apart from the odd win here and there. We even remember, I think it was in that last year of 2021, just like a month or so before the infamous Austria thing where he blew the engine up, or attempted to. He'd said something against Yamaha or Lynn Jarvis and had a bit of a fallout with them. I think that was, that's it. And they came back to Assen, and then Maverick was immediately fastest, smashing lap records just to make a point. It's like, where have you been the rest of the year, Mav? What have you been doing? You're clearly only doing this because you're pissed off that your boss has told you, no, nothing's wrong with the bike. You've got the same equipment as Fabio Quartararo. Mav was just in another world. It asked in 21. Can't remember if he won the race, but I remember he was in another world. Like, no one could get near him.
He was right up there. Right up there.
He just made everyone look stupid. It's like, well, what are you doing this for now? You've had all year. You're riding angry. You're a professional rider. You should be doing this all the time. It's what you've been paid to do. It partly was this jealousy thing about Fabio being so damn good. Honestly, he didn't like it. So he blamed Yamaha and said there's something wrong with the bike, or you're favouring Fabio. And that was that. And he obviously ended up fighting himself. But the Aprilia thing, he could have stayed there at one point. We didn't like Martin coming in. That's just a bit daft, really. And again, I'm not sure. No, they're not direct teammates, but Acosta, obviously, look what Acosta could do with the RC16. You know what I mean? He makes Brad look slow. He makes Anea is a bit of a freak of nature because Anea can still get good results now and again out of nowhere, saving tyres. And then Mav just has never been fully fit. For a year, the last year, he's not been fully fit. So he's brought it on himself. And it is sad, truthfully, as we said, because apart from people like in the last 30 years, the likes of Valentino, Casey, Mark, a handful of others. Fabio may be thrown in there with, whoever you want. A bit of the Knights is obviously Mick Doohan and whatnot. You can go back further. You can name all the greats, but Mab will be one of them that will never win a title in Premier Class. A bit like Max, in a way. Max Biaggi, he had a few outbursts, didn't he? But it was in different ways, and he was just a bit greedy with money in the end. But Max was a 4-time 250 champion, probably go down more of a legend than Vinales will, honestly. But Max always gets remembered to never winning the championship and being Rossi's rival at Rossi B. But we'll see. But I think I'll be gobsmacked if he stays now, and it won't be with Tech 3. Well, I don't think they'll want him now. And if he does want to stay, I think he'd be grovelling like hell right now. Because otherwise, you're just going to hire Luca Marini, aren't you, alongside Senna Aegis, which is what's heavily rumoured to happen. Or you're going to put Manu Gonzalez on the bike, aren't you? Someone fresh and with the right attitude, who wants to win, wants to ride, wants to get podiums in their first year. It's just a clean slate. I want to do that if I was Gunther Steiner, truthfully. And I don't think there's nowhere else you can go, is there, Keelin? Everywhere else is pretty much locked up now. And Bastianini go on, sorry.
Yeah. Now, the problem with Maverick Vinales is at this point, the cons just do not outweigh the pros of keeping him. They just don't. It was different when he was with Yamaha and he would, pull out like a great performance in Qatar or somewhere like that, or Assen where he was proving a point. But this whole like one win a season on average, it's nowhere near good enough. And frankly, he's not worth the headache that he produces. I'm sorry, that's just the truth.
No, he's not. And it was a shame in the long run because I genuinely, when he went to Aprilia, which is more or less straight away, I genuinely thought that finally Aprilia have one of the main superstars, one of the ones that's actually really fast. No disrespect to Aleix Espargaro, but Aleix Espargaro wasn't bigger achiever in MotoGP to a degree. Probably, I don't think he won as many races in Vinales, so that's actually incorrect, sorry. But Maverick was more naturally gifted than Aleix. So when they became teammates, I thought Vinales would kick his ass, and as we know, it wasn't really the case. Now and again, it might have been, but Aleix was a brilliant partner. But a lot of the time beat Mav. So, I think we'll put that one to bed today, folks, because we could go on about it for even another half an hour, which we're not going to do. But it's sad to see a career end like this, but I get an awful feeling that it was always going to end like this with some team. It was never going to end too well for Mav. Sad thing. Anyway, let's move on from that. Moto2. I must admit, I did think that Ortola was going to get beaten in that race. He is now a permanent figurehead in that championship. And so he won't get to MotoGP next year, folks, but I'm almost certain if he carries this on next year, which I don't see why he wouldn't, he will be a figurehead and getting a ride in MotoGP in 2028. But he's the top dog now. He's up there with Guevara and Aegis, Gonzalez, and Alonso and Holgado. And he was very, very clever in those closing laps, and you're going to see a lot more of that. An awful lot more of that. It was a shame to see David Alonso crash out. It is a bit bizarre now seeing someone who's performing like that, won one race this year, and still might get the HRC ride next year. But that's the way it goes. We know how good he is, really. But yeah, hats off to Ivan Ortola because it's a bit of a. I don't know about you, but I did not expect him to be winning races, being a permanent rider at the front this year. I knew he was getting there. I didn't expect this, Keelan.
No, and to be honest, I don't think anybody expected it. But I have to say, it's a very welcome change to see. And, not only does it make the championship more exciting, but everybody knows how good Ivan Ortola is. That itself is not a shock. We've seen how good he's been in Moto3 and in
Yeah,
spurts
yeah,
in
yeah,
Moto2. But to see him have this almost kind of Moto2 renaissance this year, it's a
yeah.
really good thing, and I'm here for it without a doubt. And look, he could very well push on and make it a title challenge now, which would also be very good to see. Yeah, I'm a fan of Ivan. I'm a fan of Ivan Ortola, and long may it continue. And yeah, it's him. No, sorry, I was getting him confused with Izan Guevara there with the Pramac seat. But he could very
Yes.
well become a MotoGP fixture if he pushes on and keeps this going.
Yeah, it'd be hard now, I think, for next year because everything's much locked up, but he will get there. This sort of
Hmm,
form. But you're right, the Moto3, it took him a while to get up to speed in Moto3. A little longer than some of the other superstars he had to race against in the junior categories, wasn't it? And he was a bit of a contender in 23 or 24. But yeah, he will get there. He's in the right squad. Obviously, that's the same squad that Aguirre won the championship for 2024. The MTMSI squad knows how to win races. So he's in good company there. And Guevara finally proving he needed that. Guevara needed the podium badly because he was getting a lot of, against someone else that's regarded as not really deserving of a Pramac Yamaha ride. Even though, folks, you've got to remind yourselves, he is in the Pramac Yamaha Moto2 squad. You know, he's just in the right time and right place, and he is fast. Guevara, the championship he won in 2022, was one of the best title wins I've ever seen. He was
agreed.
genuinely amazing. So it's just that it just takes so long to get fast in Moto2 for a lot of riders. There's only a handful that were fast straight away. The two that come to my mind is Acosta was fast straight away, and so was Raul Fernandez. They're both in MotoGP. Anyway, moving on. We do need to talk about Mark van der Straten. Rest in peace, Mark, because you just don't really understand how much he did for young riders. That a lot of them now have moved on to pastures new, but the list is quite long of riders that he gave careers to. From 2010, when the Moto2 World Championship took over the 250cc World Championship, that was where it started in two wheels. Obviously, in 2011, he had the GT1 World Championship. So successful, obviously, towards the end, World Superbikes. But the careers of Scott Redding wouldn't have gone even as far as MotoGP if it wasn't for Mark van der Straten. Tony Arbolino, Sam Lowes, world champions like Franco Morbidelli with the team. That got me to MotoGP. Alex Marquez, 2019 with that team. John Mayer, um, Jack, obviously, in MotoGP for the Aston 2016, you might remember that one. It's really, really sad, but I just hope the team continues. We don't know if it's going to continue or not. I just hope it doesn't get sold left, right, and centre. But what are your thoughts and memories about really? Yes, I mean, obviously, yes, he's a very, very wealthy man, but it's nice to see someone that has a lot of wealth, maybe from this Stella Artois brewery folks, yet fine, but it's nice to see someone to have a team in multiple championships and the budget's pretty good. Money's no object. Just go for it, guys. Wouldn't you do something like that as well, Keelan?
Oh, for sure I would. In fact, it's
Yeah.
probably the first thing that I would do with that level of money. I mean, isn't it the dream of every motorsport fan in the world, a billionaire owner of a global enterprise like Stella Artois? And the thing is, folks, that one thing that's very important to remember here is Mark van der Straten wasn't just a team owner, he was an old school team owner. And what that means is someone who, put his money into his business because he enjoyed it and because he loved doing what he did. Mark VDS, I'm sure it wasn't, an enterprise to pursue profit or to get dividends out of. Pursuing motorcycle racing is something Mark van der Straten did because he loved it and he enjoyed
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I think we should all be so lucky that we're able to pursue our passions in life the way Mr. VDS himself did. And it's a terribly sad loss. You could see how much he meant to the team and the people in the team. And you can see how much he means to the paddock because it really is the loss of an old school figure. So my deepest condolences to the Van der Straten family and the Mark VDS outfit as a whole, because it is a really sad loss and he is going to be missed a lot by everybody in the paddock. And like you said, I just hope the team goes on because it's a great outfit. They're woven into the DNA of the sport and I hope they do keep going because they're very, very important to us.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Rest in peace, Van der Straten, and thanks for the memories. You went to Goodwood Festival Speed, as we spoke about earlier in the pod. It has quite a good bike presence every year, which is putting it mild. That's a very broad statement, isn't it? They are sort of shoved into a bit of a corner, which you're going to talk about. But we did see a Ducati anniversary appreciated, right? And Fogarty was there one, and Valentino was appreciated just as much, pretty much as 2015 when he went there. How was it, and how would you recommend it or not recommend it to MotoGP fans or motorcycle racing fans in general?
Yeah, so as Jim's just said, I have just come back from a land of many adventures, i.e. West Sussex, to the Goodwood Festival of Speed. And it's been a very interesting experience. I'm happy to report to the people listening to the show. The first thing that I do want to say is, and I got this opinion from quite a lot of different places because it's a massive, massive estate, as you know yourself, Jim. So there's a lot of stuff going on and there's a lot of different marquees and brands represented. And I spoke to a number of different people from the bike world, of course, because that's what our interest is. And they basically all agreed that Goodwood it's a car event, it's a car show. And if you're an F1 fan or a drifting fan or an Americana fan, you are going to have a pretty brilliant time at Goodwood because it's almost exclusively catered to everything four wheels. Now, that being said, there was definitely a presence of two wheels, but it very much felt like a minority and it felt to me a little bit like an afterthought. What I mean by that is when you walk up the Goodwood estate up towards the top end where the media centre and even further up where the World Rally stage is, which was very cool, I'd totally recommend that.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
at the foot of the F1 paddocks, you have the bike exhibitions. So this year you had Barry Sheen's bikes from his career, you had the Ducati machines, you had a Mike Hailwood Honda, which sounded incredible and it scared the arse off a lot of people walking by, which was always brilliant. But
yeah.
the bikes to me very much did feel like an afterthought, I have to say, and you could tell 90% of the people there, they were there for the F1 machinery and the different cars. And listen, that's totally fine. I'm never going to tell somebody what they should be interested in or not. It's totally up to you and what you're into. But I do think if you live for two wheels the way myself and Jim do and other people do, I do think you will be slightly disappointed by what you find in terms of presence and sort of attention and that kind of thing. So, if I'm honest, if you are a bike fan, would I recommend going to Goodwood one errand for it? Probably not. I don't think I could say I would recommend it on that basis. But if you like bikes and you like cars and you like F1 and you like really cool drifting machinery and aftermarket stuff, then by all means go and see it because there is a lot going on and it is very cool in that way. But the only other thing I will say to accompany that is Goodwood is very, very expensive to go to. So, for example, the beer, if that's what you're into, can be quite expensive. The food can get pretty expensive quite quickly too. They charged £5 for a small ice cream, which I just on a moral level totally disagreed with. So if you are going to go, by all means go. It's a cool place. And if you get the weather we got, it's an incredible weekend for sure. But just be aware aware of what you're getting into and be aware of the prices as well, because they can stack up pretty quickly.
Yeah, it was expensive when I went in 17 and 18, but there was less bike presence then. There was a MotoGP theme a couple of years ago. I think was it 23 or 22, and a lot of the teams went. It was good, but there was a lack of interest from the fans, which so that's not on Goodwood. That's just because the current lack of interest in two wheels, just people just don't care.
That's
In the
it.
UK at least. If Goodwood was in mainland Spain and Italy, it'd be a completely different conversation. We wouldn't even be having this conversation like this because
Oh, they'd be turning
it
people
would be
away
in
at the
steamers.
gates.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there would still be, but there'd still be equal F1 attention because of Fernando and because of Carlos Sainz. So it's just the car snobbery in the UK has always been there, but you add the more mainstream F1 audience that's been around the last decade and only growing. It's difficult. The Rossi thing that obviously you may have seen on TV, folks, or on YouTube, and that sort of saved it to a degree, Keelan, from where I was sat watching at least. And the speech that Valentino gave, an interview that Chandhok had between him and Lando was, it sort of saved it a bit. But I could sometimes think I was like, oh, some of the F1 fans thinking, who is this guy? He hasn't been on the scene in ages. Um, but it was good. It gave it MotoGP a platform in a massively car attended event and themed event, which was good. And it showed a lot of people that, the yellow comes from Rossi, does it? So that was educational to a lot of people. Not even everyone there is watching the house, but they can all hear it on their tannoy, can't they? So there's a bit of education to a lot of big car fans, and a lot of the F1 diehards go to Goodwood. So that must have been a good thing, Keelan, surely.
Yeah, it was. I think the problem is, to a degree, I think if Rossi had been there solely with, say, Yamaha, for example, instead of with Monster Energy, I think there would have been more of a spotlight on the bikes. Don't get me wrong, he did a run up the hill on his M1, but they didn't even advertise that. Like, if I'd have known Rossi was doing a hill
Yeah.
climb on the M1, I would have been all over that, but I didn't even know it was
Yeah.
happening. I
Yeah,
knew
it's
he
not
was
good
doing a
enough,
run
that.
up the hill in his yeah, he was doing a run up the hill, I should say, sorry, in his
Yeah.
M3 and in the hypercars and stuff, and that was
Yes.
great. The problem is that it just wasn't advertised very well at all. And even I think Rossi said on the balcony with Karam, he said he even acknowledged this is more of a car event than it is a bike
He did. He
event.
said it as well,
And
didn't he?
yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah,
did.
and sort of the worst problem at all that I found that was almost not insulting but definitely aggravating. If the event is running behind schedule, which on Saturday it ran, no, it was Friday, it ran 85 minutes behind schedule. The bikes are the first to get cancelled, and they will get cancelled to make sure the cars get out and up the hill. So it was batch 4, which had all the motorcycles in it, and because the schedule was running behind, it got axed to make sure all the other machinery went up. So just be very aware of what you're getting into, because if Valentino Rossi knows it's about cars, you should know it's about cars as well.
Yeah, and also when they're all in one tent as well, which I understand to a little bit of a degree because bikes are smaller than cars, so to have all the bikes in one place makes spacing logistics sense. I get it, but when you have some exotics, and I'm sure listeners that listen to this indie podcast, if you like, as we are right now, you'll know that something like a Casey Stoner GP7, a Colin Edwards RC45 Castrol Honda from 1998. These are very, very rare bikes. And if not rare, they did something very special that is quite close to many people's hearts and memories. And it's just in there with the rest of the bikes next to a tree and a fence,
Yeah.
being ignored by a lot of car people. That's the only thing that you can't really avoid in a part of the country that's, let's face it, quite wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always going to be surrounded by car people. It might be different if it was in Doncaster, but it's not. I don't know why it would be in Doncaster, but you get
It's
my
like
drift.
I'll give you another quick example. They obviously people cared about Valentino Rossi's bike because it's Valentino Rossi and he's co-headlining. They had Andrea Dovizioso's GP19, one of the best MotoGP bikes ever made. Nobody cared. Nobody gave it a second
No.
look, and it's just such poor marketing. Honest to God.
They do try on the Goodwood official Festival of Speed and Goodwood Road and Racing. There's two different separate Instagram accounts, right? And they do push it. The Festival Speed one has been pushing the Rossi Norris thing. I think the Rossi thing was easier to get an audience because Lando was with him. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
yeah, so that kind of didn't count. But Valentino is likable anyway. If it's just the bikes on its own, it gets an awful lot less likes by the general public, even though they're trying to plug it on the build up to the Festival Speed Week, right? You'll get something about Sheen or someone will get 3,000 likes, 6,000 likes maybe, and then there'll be a Lando post. It'll get 30,000 likes. It's just like, wow, you can't just engineer interest. You just can't do that. It's just the way it is. So Goodwood have been trying in that regard. That sounds like I'm playing devil's advocate because they have been trying a bit. But obviously what happens is the event, they're not trying hard enough is what you're saying, which is a
Yeah,
bit of a shame.
basically.
They did have, obviously, it is a bit, if you've ever been to stuff like the Yorkshire Show, folks, or like a big car, like a big town show when you get the odd manufacturer there, it's a bit like that with car manufacturers, isn't it? They get a massive ultra modern marquee with their current lineup of cars. There is a couple of bike ones there, isn't there? The BMW Motorrad and there as well. So there's a lot of that going on, folks. If you're not into that, it's 50% of the entire show. You know, just obviously manufacturers there showing off their latest and greatest. But yeah, it's good. Sounds like we're just slagging it off, but we are the bike fraternities. Of course, we're going to slag it off a bit because they could do more. But I'm glad you went, mate. And obviously, now you realise you should have come to Silverstone with me, but you learned the hard way, I guess. Sorry. I had to say it, folks. But yeah, you could still surprise me and turn up anyway. I know. Yeah, we'll see. So, um, we should probably talk about Silverstone briefly if we've got a second, Keelan.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Well, tell you what, there's a lot of build. There's 3 weeks till Silverstone happens, actually, folks. So not too much because I'm going to do a preview and a few other bits. But one thing I will say, speaking of that, not giving bikes enough coverage, Silverstone are about to host their second Grand Prix of the year, and their homepage is still drenched in Formula One about how good the weekend was and the results, and see you next year. Like, you're joking. It's going to sell out anyway. Keelan, they should be promoting MotoGP. I mean, we were talking about this yesterday on the phone, weren't we? Their
We
current
were.
homepage, folks, Silverstone MotoGP, sorry, silverstone.co.uk. Go to their homepage right now. You've got to scroll down to the bottom of the homepage to see MotoGP. Yes, you could say it's on the homepage, but it should be the first thing you see. There was someone close to me said, Jim, you could argue that more people buy their next year tickets to get the space they want straight after this year than MotoGP tickets sell out this year in total. Correct. But F1 will still sell out anyway for next year. Keelan, it's just not good enough, is it?
No. I mean, to be frank, for a world championship and for a region of the world like the United Kingdom that's played such a pivotal role in that world championship, for the official round to have such little, I mean, look at that, folks. I mean, you could see we're not lying. We couldn't make this up if we tried. The
Official
lack of
website.
promotion and the lack of promotion and the lack of effort is quite frankly appalling, in my opinion, because I mean, we were actually saying this again on the phone yesterday. The contract for the British Grand Prix at Silverstone runs out after 3 weeks' time. We may not get a British Grand Prix round again because it's so poorly promoted and it's so poorly attended. And it just seems to me like nobody cares. And then TNT Sports, who, to be fair, they provide brilliant coverage of the championship. Shout out Susie Perry, Neil Hodgson, and all those guys. They're brilliant at what they do. But they broadcast the Assen Grand Prix from this BT TNT viewing thing in London a couple of weeks ago. It had a pretty good attendance, and there's been no follow-on from it. There's been nothing to build on the momentum. I mean, what are we even doing?
There was a little post today I saw between Silverstone on Instagram and MotoGP, which is good. They haven't done it like that before, and on Facebook. So that can't be the only thing there. That can't be just right box ticked. They need to keep doing that more in the next 3 weeks. They really, really, really do. And that event, I saw clips from that event. It looks really good, and I was really happy it was happening. Whether or not they were plugging the Silverstone British Grand Prix, or by the way, if you enjoyed that, we'll see you in a month at Silverstone. They need to have been doing that, and if they weren't, then what was almost what was the point? Although promoting MotoGP in a massively car country in that capital city, that's still good. But Yeah, it's nothing to do with the track. I know people love to slag off Silverstone in favour of Donington because they're thinking about the past. I can tell you what, folks, you won't be able to remember any good last lap battles because there never was any at Donington. What you're remembering is good atmosphere, a shorter lap, so you saw the bikes more, and it was hilly, which made a good atmosphere. You're remembering that. You're not remembering good racing because there was only a couple of races that were good at Donington, for MotoGP at least. So Silverstone, 11 different winners, I think, in 11 different years. There's always battles for the win. Well, okay, there has been probably in 2010 was the first one in the modern era. So we've had about 8 last lap battles for the win. Donington never had anywhere close to that. People don't
No, it
care and
didn't.
don't care about stats. You know, it's so fast for MotoGP Silverstone. So, and there's tons of places for overtaking. But try telling that to someone who's only ever went to Donington. They won't care. The mind's already said that that's not going to happen. I'm not going. It's just sad, really, because that mentality is one of the big reasons why we'll probably get 40,000 on race day. That is sad. But Silverstone at the same time are not helping themselves by not promoting. And they're not putting proper billboards out around the surrounding areas in Milton Keynes and Toaster. They're not doing that. Whereas you go to Barcelona and you go on the little, underground train, and the billboards and posters are all about MotoGP. You wouldn't see that in the UK. You wouldn't see that in
Every
London.
single station, every single underground station in Barcelona, in Italy, in Germany, you can't get away from it. That's how well promoted it is.
Yeah.
In the UK and Ireland, nothing.
I wonder if for some reason F1 wasn't as popular, I wonder if they'd push the MotoGP more to get some more profit at the end of the year. Because, I mean, 500,000 people over the British Grand Prix F1 weekend, one event, is outrageously impressive. 175,000, Keelin, was there on race day. I mean, there won't even be 75,000 for MotoGP. That would be a good turnout because they'll only, half the grandstands are closed for MotoGP. But to me, that sounded uncomfortably busy. But we're worlds away from that, and probably will be till there's a British superstar and there's a Netflix series or something like that. But Silverstone need to work harder anyway, massively harder. The ticket prices, when you really think about it, folks, £115 for 3 days. It's not that bad, general admission. You get grandstand roving in there as well. Not the best stands. 135 if you want a really good stand for 3 days. That's average, folks. It's not the most expensive. So don't give us that. But it's just the promotion that's the issue. So I wonder how many times I'll say that before I go in 3 weeks. Anyway, and we need to wrap this up because it's turned into another Silverstone rant, and Keelin needs to go and I need to go. So thanks for tuning in, folks. Of course, Cal will be there, has been confirmed today. Crutchlow will be back. Can he pick up points is the question. That would be brilliant. I'm sure if he got points, there would be a big cheer, actually. It wouldn't be a sympathy cheer, but it'd be awesome, Keelin, wouldn't it, if Cal could bring it home in the points somehow. We never know.
It would be
might rain.
fantastic.
It'd be unbelievable, that, wouldn't it? Be awesome. But we do have a Brit in the Premier Class. So buy some tickets, no excuses. Anyway, we will be back next week, whether it be me, Keelin, or me and Ryan, maybe even with Alex, who knows. But thanks for tuning in, and thanks for listening to some Goodwood talk as well, which isn't strictly MotoGP, but thanks for tuning in, folks. And cheers, Keelin, as always.
Jim, pleasure as always. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We really appreciate it. Leave likes, comments, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, folks.